I, Paul Diffley, call the Board of Education regular meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the public. I'd like to welcome the community members in attendance this evening. As a reminder, governing board meetings are a business meeting of the board, held in public, and although public participation is encouraged, it is not the public's meeting. It is the duty of the board president and/or clerk of the board to maintain an orderly, respectful, and peaceful meeting where all perspectives, voices, and opinions are heard and welcomed. Please refrain from speaking out while another person has the floor. A2, a quorum is present with all board members in attendance. Mrs. Lund will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For everybody. A4 is approval of the agenda, calls for a motion and a second. So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving to B. B1. Superintendent report. Dr. Andrews.
Thank you. I appreciate those attending in the audience tonight and those watching online. We appreciate the services rendered by our staff to prepare for this meeting. It's been a great year and great to have even what it takes to put on this meeting tonight with both the technologies, our law enforcement partners who are with us, and all the work that goes into our meeting and our board for attending this meeting, which is theirs. This has been a terrific year, a fabulous year. Being new to the community, I've been able to participate in many activities and events during the course of the school year. Of course, the school year ended back on June 2nd, a little over a week ago. Just for some notes, there were 2,122 high school graduates so far, because there's still some kids coming through summer school. Yes, we're excited about that. We promoted 1,733 eighth graders onto high school. We promoted another 1,711 fifth graders to the middle school. Those high school graduates contributed 88,463 hours of community service. So as they met that requirement and that expectation, actually it's above because we've done a little COVID modification and they're actually outperforming. The average is 41.6 hours per graduate. Really tremendous what they've done. As we look forward to next year, we're excited about the opportunities. We have 464 transitional kindergartners. Those are the littlest of the littles coming in. That's about 60 more than we ended with. And we haven't even hit our summer rush when parents go, oh yes, I need to register my kiddos. So that's coming. So we're excited about that. As we conclude the school year, we're really looking forward to preparing for next year. Much of this is some capital improvements. You know, summer is a very busy time for us as well. They're underway, such as painting schools, repaving parking lots. There's a new roof going on or near completion over at Murrieta Valley, a new crosswalk at Vista, because when they put in that new shopping center, they added a crosswalk that we weren't expecting. Anyways, we need to fix that. That's underway. We're excited about that. Murrieta Elementary School, our first grammar school. If you drive by, you've seen the crane. And so steel is rising from the foundation. We're so excited to see a new classroom building being constructed there. With any luck and some hard work, we'll be in it sometime in the fall of 2024. And so we're delighted to see that effort going on. It'll also alleviate some parking. It will be a challenge, though, for our friends at Murrieta Elementary for the remainder of the year, as we know, because they've lost their blacktop for now. We're filling vacancies at all different levels, filling staffing needs from administrators down to just entry-level employees and even our substitutes, always looking for those opportunities and providing professional training for everyone who's veteran to new employees who are being onboarded. This includes school board members. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to recognize briefly Miss Linda Lunn, one of our school board members here. She has completed the California School Board Association 40 hours of what's called Masters in Governance. It's an online training program that's 5 weekends to complete 40 hours of training. She's already received some other goodies. It's some effort. I'm not a school board member, but I've only gotten through 2 sessions. I still have 3 to go. Also, but tonight on tonight, we have 2 new principals that are here tonight. Both are in the audience. They will be approved tonight in the personnel report. I'm going to first ask Tricia Morell if she would stand. Tricia Morell, there she is. Oh, no, you need to stay standing. I'm not quite done. Mrs. Morell, she is a former assistant principal at the school at Lisa J. Males, where she will be taking on the role of principal, replacing Daniel Baldwin, who's also in the audience. He's now in this building. We're glad. Oh, he's in the back waving. Okay, thank you. Tricia has worked there for years as a teacher and an intervention teacher, and we're glad to have her expertise there. So thank you, Tricia. Also in the audience is Marcy Key. Marcy, if you'd stand, please. Thank you. Marcy is a longtime educator in our district and has had a variety of experiences, most recently as a vice principal at Murrieta Elementary School. She's been in that role for some time, well beloved by her colleagues and staff, and now knows where the hard hats are at, right? And so she'll be stepping into the role at Murrieta Elementary School, take over for Rob Lurkins, who's now our ELOP coordinator or ELOP principal on assignment. So thank you, Marcy, for taking that position. Moving on to some other items, kind of a year in review, we've made significant progress in our goals and directions. Those interested in seeing our progress, you can find that actually in my superintendent's, there's an item under D3, which are the 2022 and 2023 accomplishments. It's a list of things that were accomplished during the course of the year. And it's everything from, we now make from scratch salads to we have a revised goals and directions effort to we've attended trainings to et cetera, et cetera. All the things we've done, actually not all, just a fraction of the things we've done, because it'd be about 30 or 40 pages long if we listed everything that was accomplished in our schools, but just some highlights there. I'm also particularly excited to see this week our student submissions for an infographic that will describe our profile of a graduate. Rather than just turning our profile of a graduate the board adopted this year over to a graphic artist and let them go for it, we reached out to our high school students, say, hey, what should this look like? And they've submitted some models. So we'll select one today, and then we'll go to some final editing that will be coming out later this fall, actually, as the school year starts, to describe our profile of a graduate to our students and to our community. Lastly, I'd like to announce, I don't know if this person is here tonight. I'd like to announce our new student board representative for next year, Isabella Dedalt. Is she here tonight? No, she's not. So following our newly adopted board policies and administrative regulations, Isabella will report on the efforts of the Superintendent's Student Advisory Council. This is in addition to the students who do their updates each month on the school activities. She'll be doing some additional work or different work with the students, with the Superintendent's Advisory Council. And she is a Murrieta Valley High School student. So we look forward to that. Just as a reminder, making comments tonight, we want to remind members of our public, again, many people are watching, they keep an eye on what we do. We encourage individuals to express themselves. That is part of this country, the freedom of speech, but recognize that we want to do that with dignity and civility for the common good. We in Murrieta have this idea that we can improve upon what's here and we can contribute to the good of our schools, for our community and our students. So please consider your comments accordingly. Mr. Diffley, that completes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of public comments, which we are, item B2, individuals wishing to address the board were requested to complete a request to address the Board of Education card located at the entrance to the boardroom and submit it to the executive assistant to the superintendent and board. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9323, individual speakers shall be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. Item B, let's see. You ready to go?
We are just trying to get the timer to turn on.
Did you break it already?
Nope. Mr. President Diffley, we have 10 comment cards for item D7, which is the history curriculum. At 3 minutes, that becomes 30 minutes on this single agenda item. And so we can either amend it to fewer minutes per person, or the board can select to extend it to hear all of them. Or a total of 30 minutes total on this topic.
Okay. Board, what's your thought?
Is there, there would be,
Discussion.
you could have a discussion or a motion and we can,
I think everybody here, it should be heard, for the full 3 minutes. But I also, if you hear people are repeating some of the same things, maybe you could help us speed along. But other than that, I think that everyone should have their chance to speak.
I agree. Agree down there.
so is, you need to take an action. So motion.
Okay. May we have a motion on the time limit?
I move that all speakers get their 3 minutes.
I second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 3 minutes it is. Now read two names at once, the person who's coming up first and then the person who will follow them. That'll make things go a little quicker so we can get out before midnight. Yvette Anthony and Karen Michaud. Don't rush, it's okay.
Okay. I'm glad I got 3 minutes because I was speed reading in my car and it was going to go over.
Welcome.
Hello, board. I am here to speak on item D7, approval of proposed new AP US history curriculum. I'm glad to see this process come to an end and a happy end with a book we all can agree on, I think, Fabric of a Nation. But before we move on, I would like to make a statement about how unhappy I am with how the process was handled. When I emailed you, Ward, in March regarding how things were being handled and that there was a book I was concerned about, you were dismissive with me and replied, "We expanded our efforts this year with all of our social science teachers participating in the review rather than a committee." So, Ward, you had the discretion to set up an advisory committee that would have included parents and community members, but you chose not to. That was a violation of both the Ed Code and your own admin reg that states parents and community involvement in the selection process shall be promoted and encouraged. That didn't happen. Our participation in the selection wasn't promoted or encouraged. And this isn't the first time you've bypassed getting input from the community or tried to. How about the time you presented a board policy to allow students to sit on the dais with language giving only you and the school principal's discretion to decide who is chosen, even though the Ed Code required they get 500 signatures? While these 5 board members are elected, you wanted full discretion to see who appoint the student who sits on the board as a student representative. In the end, thanks to Mr. Diffley, the language was rewritten to require that the students elect which students represent them on the board. Thank you, Mr. Diffley. Or how about the time after the Temecula students had a walkout? And about a month after that, there was a general handbook on how to handle a variety of situations that arise that was on this board's agenda. And part of that handbook covered how to handle a walkout. It was so poorly written. It didn't include any language regarding notifying parents, only that a letter was to be drawn up, but it did not state when that letter would be given to parents, if at all. I remember I spoke about that. You have disregarded parents, students, and community members. And that's why I really don't trust you to do the right thing on behalf of us. If I were on the board tonight, I would definitely vote no to giving you a 7% raise because I don't think you earned it. As far as, lastly, I want a parental discretion policy put on the agenda that covers discussions that are happening at school board or at schools between teachers and counselors and students that give clear understanding of what is required to be disclosed when these type of discussions are happening. So I'd like that agendized if I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Michaud, and after our next speaker, Alfonso Kick Jr. will be next. Hi. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Andrus and all members of the Board of Education. Thank you for allowing me to speak this afternoon. My name is Karen Michaud. I am a retired teacher and principal from the Murrieta Valley Unified School District. From the very beginning of our district, our educational programs have been known for their success in providing an equal and successful academic and social educational program for all of our students. With countless hours of dedicated work by district office staff, classroom teachers, and classified employees, this district has provided the very best academic programs for the success of all of our students. It is extremely important that our school district continues this endeavor. Students have a right to the most thorough and accurate education possible. I join many community members in thanking Dr. Andrus and our board members for supporting an accurate, factual, and thoughtful history, social sciences curriculum for our children. In this modern world, it is essential that children are provided with curriculum presenting information on all facets of our racially and ethnically diverse population. In a democracy based on freedom and rights for all, knowledge is essential. We cannot know where we are going unless we know where we have been. Please consider what is best for all of our students. We cannot choose our history. We must learn from it. Thank you.
Thank you. And following Mr. Kick will be
Maria Reguero. Maria Reguero.
Maria Reguero. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Alfonso Kirk, and my 3 kids have been in this district for the past decade. 2 graduated, and one, the last one, will start her junior year at Vista Murrieta this fall. I'm a software and optical engineer by training, and I've been blessed to work from my home for many years. So when we relocated to Murrieta from Florida many years ago, the excellence of this school district was one of the top draws to this area. And to date, we have no regrets in choosing this place to raise our family. In fact, in 2021, my second kid, Nikitris, was honored to be the first Black valedictorian from this district. And she's now at UCLA studying engineering, will be interning with Google in Mountain View this summer. While my son is graduating this fall from North Texas, and he'll be teaching history to middle school kids next year. My wife, Melanie, has also spent many years in this district subbing, and so we believe we've gotten as much as we've given to this district. My point here is that MVUSD has done an excellent job in preparing my kids for success, and we'd like to see this continue for my family and beyond. But like another member of our APAC leadership team, Natalie Hartwell, will address later, I want to pick up on a point that she's going to make about the place of religious beliefs in this public school system. I want to speak on the importance of the pursuit of truth. And I'm not here to defend truth because it doesn't need my defense, but I also spent over 15 years as a Christian pastor, so I know a little bit about this. And I want to say to the district that we reject some of the proposed positions as Christian positions. Christian positions cannot be bolstered or built on lies and conspiracy theories. Jesus was clear in John 8:44 when he said that Satan is a liar and the father of lies. And later, Jesus called his spirit the spirit of truth. This district should not be afraid of the truth and teaching our children the pursuit of truth. And if that means that we find out that a great politician was gay, then so be it. If that means that we find out that one of our founding fathers owned over 600 slaves and raped and impregnated one of them while she was 13 or 14 and had 6 or 7 kids by that same slave, then does that take away from the fact that he wrote the Declaration of Independence, negotiated the Louisiana Purchase, or was our 3rd president and one of the most consequential Americans or presidents? I don't think it does. In fact, the Bible itself is filled with truth about imperfect people. Most of the imperfect people in the spotlight in the Old Testament were Israelites, but notice how they wrote the truth about their own heroes: Abraham, the fearful liar; David, a murderous adulterer; or Solomon, the sex addict. And we know this list goes on. And you know what? When I read it, none of this makes me love God less. On the contrary, I love him more because it gives me hope of what he can do with imperfect people. And the same thing is accurate for American history. The truth doesn't make me or my children hate this country. No, it makes us love it all the more because we're hopeful, because we believe the truth is stronger than any lie. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
And following this speaker will be Pam Barrett. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, Madam Clerk, and members of the board. Thank you for revisiting the AP History adoption and considering.
Excuse me. Could you pull the microphone down?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for revisiting the AP History and considering Fabric of a Nation, the teacher's second choice. I'm here as I was not able to speak at the last meeting on a subject that's very important to me, as I was raised in communist Cuba as a young child and understand indoctrination through education. I'll start by saying that having concerns and voicing opinions on the selected text have absolutely nothing to do with disrespecting teachers, their professionalism, or integrity. Many who voiced opinions here are in fact educators, and just between a few of us, we have over 150 years of teaching experience, much of it in Murrieta School District. From the start, my concern has been the content of the book, a book that offered a one-sided view and painted our nation, its foundation, and one political side as a negative force in history. Having come from a country with history books were removed and replaced with anti-American United States Untruth, teaching only about the evil imperialist country 90 miles away, experienced firsthand indoctrination through false education, it is my duty to do what I can so students learn not only true history, but histories that are fact-based and not filled with authors' political bias commentaries in order to serve an agenda. It is sad, frightening, and very dangerous that students, through state-approved textbook choices, get one-sided information, especially when the information paints our nation, its foundation, and one party as a villain in history. So again, it is not about teachers. It has been and is about the content of a book used to teach American history and ensuring text offer more factual, offering different views, and to encourage students to question and research. The number one concern in the teaching of history should be to encourage students to question and verify through primary and secondary sources, not to read one-sided biased commentary with missing facts and information as factual history to serve a political agenda. This concern has been about ensurance that community members, the taxpayers, have a voice in what is being taught. It is about transparency, or the lack thereof, and parent and community involvement in the education of their children and evaluating teaching resources. I have reviewed Fabric of a Nation, the teacher's second choice, and found it to be a better option. While reviewing the sections on Cuba, there is no doubt the book has non-truths and slants to one side, specifically on our leader of independence, Jose Marti, but it is a much better text with references to primary sources and such. The concern is that all students receive education without bias and political indoctrination. While I prefer connecting with the past, I ask that you consider Fabric of a Nation. It is not perfect, and as Mr. Diffley stated, has a few rotten tomatoes, but it is a better and much more fact-based option. Will you as a board help ensure that students leave our schools knowing factual history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, understanding our founders, documents, and most importantly, loving and respecting our nation by considering the teacher's second choice, Fabric of a Nation? Thank you for your dedication to students.
Pam Barrett. And following Mrs. Barrett will be David Barrett. Welcome.
Hello.
You can walk, it's okay.
Good evening. On April 20th, the board voted 3-2 to take a pause on Give Me Liberty by Eric Foner in order to investigate further. Many members of the community came prepared to speak with examples of inaccuracies and Foner's bias shown to be woven across the pages of this book, and not just the last chapter. On that night, Dr. Andrus cut our individual 3-minute comments to 2. Then on May 11th, community members spoke out against the process that ignored California Ed Code 60002. After being shut out of the textbook selection and adoption process, many of us, including grandparents, retired teachers, parents, and community members, including business owners, took it upon ourselves to review Give Me Liberty in detail and to compare it with Alan Brinkley's Connecting the Past.
which was one of 6 books Macaria Gonzalez and APUSH teachers said they considered. This book, like Give Me Liberty, is from a list of 21 examples of textbooks that meet curricular requirements of AP US History on the College Board website. In fact, Brinkley's Connecting the Past is listed by the College Board as a sample syllabus. As we stated during public comments on March 25th, Brinkley's book, although not perfect, read more like a textbook and offered a more balanced look at American history, including good, bad, and ugly, providing both sides of an issue and provided much needed opportunity for the students to debate both sides of an argument. On May 18th, during the APUSH presentation, Ms. Gonzalez stated that the teacher's second choice was Fabric of a Nation. And when the Foner book was voted down that night, we immediately began investigating Fabric of a Nation by Jason Stacy and Matthew Ellington. We purchased this book in order to get a valid firsthand look at a hard copy and compare it with Brinkley's Connecting the Past. After much effort, taking a deep dive into Fabric of a Nation, comparing with Brinkley's textbook, and then all the issues we had with the Foner book, we actually feel we can approve of Fabric of a Nation because it reads like a textbook, presents more than one side of an issue, offers opportunities for debate, promotes thinking historically and analyzing, comparing primary sources embedded within the period, and guides students to write historically, reviewing the writing process. As former educators, we understand the pressures these teachers are under to prepare for the coming year. We know they need their textbooks in order to be able to assign readings for the summer and through the year. We encourage you to vote to approve Fabric of a Nation. And in closing, this adoption mess we find ourselves in is clearly not the fault of the teachers. Having said that, we are beyond happy to know that a curriculum adoption policy is being revised so that in the future, teachers, administrators, parents, community members will be part of a transparent selection process. Thank you so much.
Dave Barrett, pardon me, David Barrett, and following Mr. Barrett will be Jolene Cochran. Welcome.
Hi there. Well, first, let me just say, usually my wife gets the last word, so I'm really honored tonight that I follow her and get the last word tonight. So just a special thanks to you, Mr. Diffley. Let me just say this to the board and also to Dr. Andrus. Thank you again for the chance to express my opinion regarding the AP American History textbook adoption. Last time I compared 2 books, one, Give Me Liberty, which I feel reads like an opinion piece. The other, American History Connecting the Past with the Past, I believe reads like a straightforward, factual textbook. Tonight, I'd like to include my analysis of the teacher's second choice, Fabric of a Nation. Similar to Connecting with the Past textbook, Fabric of a Nation seems to be more factual and even-handed. Both textbooks bring out 2 sides of various issues which can lead to beneficial student debate. Either of these books would be a fine choice. Since both books are very comparable, I would give my nod to the teacher's wishes and adopt Fabric of a Nation. In closing, I just would like to mention that I'm glad the textbook adoption process will be adjusted more closely to the education code to include parents and also the greater community. And I want to encourage district personnel to adhere closely to that new upcoming process. Let's keep all stakeholders in the loop and involved. Thank you again for your time tonight.
And following Ms. Cochran, pardon me, will be Michelle Singleton. Welcome.
Hi. Okay, so as you know, I'm Jolene. I'm here asking for some clarity. I've come from Murrieta School District and have seen many changes from then till now. But the biggest ones that are upsetting is the political brainwashing over actual education and the secrecy from parents so we don't stand in the way of the brainwashing. Tell any parent
that teaching kids anything in secret is okay, and I guarantee it's not going to go well for you, especially when it's got any sexual content / information. It then becomes grooming. I would know. Personally have been there. It then becomes grooming. Only the parents know when the child is mature enough to handle that sensitive topic. When I was in school, I would have to get a permission slip to attend anything related to sexual health. My point is, can we all stop politicizing education and teach what is actually important? Also, California law indicates LGBTQI information must be taught throughout many, if not most grades without parent consent. This should disturb everyone because let's be super honest. How does that help any kid succeed in their future or future career? Yes, absolutely be against hate of any kind, but also don't take away anyone's right to think for themselves, even if they are kids. My last statement is going to be to you. I come here all the time. I know you see me. I'm not somebody you miss because I have super long, bright red hair in your face. You look bored out of your mind every time I stare at you and watch your behavior. It is frustrating. And I got to tell you, it pisses off a lot of people. Can you please stop being so focused on what you believe and start paying attention to the people that have kids going through this system? Look at me when I'm talking to you. I'm right here. It's frustrating. Grow up.
Michelle Singleton, did you fill out 2 cards?
It should just be one.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, not trying to get 6 minutes, are you?
I might take it. All right. Good evening, board. I would like to speak tonight in regards to the AP US History textbook. I'm asking again that the original textbook, Give Me Liberty, be reconsidered. This was the curriculum made available to the community in proper accordance to Ed Code. It was available in the lobby for, I believe, even over 30 days. There's multiple school board meetings where it was presented what this curriculum was and how this recommendation was made. It was brought to the public on multiple occasions for input. And it was what was vetted and recommended by Murrieta's experts and teachers in the field. Those opposed to this text were members of the public who were given talking points by their church and lacked credentials and expertise in the field. While public input is incredibly important in our curriculum, at the end of the day, I believe judgment should be made based on what experts and credentialed individuals have to say. Their complaints against the textbook were focused on how the Trump presidency was covered and that the text lacked footnotes, which every single other textbook lacked. The coverage of the Trump presidency, I know, will continue to be complicated, right? And it's going to be a source that will be complicated throughout social science classrooms to come. However, the way the presidency was covered in both textbooks, the one that you'll currently be looking at tonight, and the Give Me Liberty text are very similar in how they talk about the rhetoric used by the former president. Again, it's difficult. We've never had a president that's been impeached twice. We've never had a president that's been federally indicted. It's a sensitive topic that deserves careful consideration on how things are explained in classrooms and through textbooks, as things are constantly, as we see today, continuing to unravel. Both the Give Me Liberty and the textbook under consideration tonight, like I said, they cover the Trump presidency in very similar language. So I'm not sure why this text is acceptable when the award-winning Eric Foner's text was disregarded. The Give Me Liberty text was also opposed by board members such as Mr. Pardue, whose school board campaign was bankrolled by donors outside of Murrieta. A whopping 75% of all of his political contributions came from outside of Murrieta, including states like Nevada and Arizona, where ironically, they have adopted the Give Me Liberty text. And Ms. Vandegrip, whose campaign received over 40% of her campaign funds from just one donor, who is the president of the Temecula-Murrieta Republican Assembly, that has a clear political agenda with our school boards. Curriculum should be decided by local experts and teachers. This is about local accountability and control, right? And so decisions should be made by those in Murrieta. not by donors in outside states and outside of this area that are influencing their agendas on the members that they have gotten elected, but by our experts and our community members that live here, have students here, and have a vested interest in here besides their political agendas. I also respectfully encourage a second. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Margaret Rucker, and following her, Carl Kunze. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. All right. Empowering the lives of all African-American children and families by providing the knowledge and skills necessary to advocate for high-quality educational experiences, support cultural proficiency and development and equitable practices. These are a few of the goals of our Murrieta parents that spent hours creating to support the mission for the African-American Parent Advisory APAC under past Assistant Superintendent Pam Wilson and Erica Bennett almost 5 years ago. Murrieta Valley's USD's APAC mission is to support the academic and social emotional growth of African American students. These goals and missions are based on a nationwide and specific data from the Riverside County African American Achievement Initiative, which was formed in 2013 by then Riverside County Superintendent Kenneth Young to ensure that all African American students achieve, which is documented in the blueprint for action that can be found on RCOE's website. By the way, my name is Marguerite Rucker. Garrett, I wanted to jump straight into the facts of what APAC is in case any were unfamiliar. As a parent of 2 grown Murrieta Valley USD students, a teacher of 31 years, 26 in Murrieta, I wanted to let you know how proud I am of our district and its formation, support, and belief in the importance of all parent advisory councils. Of course, being African American and raising African American children, I am most proud to be part of our group of stakeholders that believe in the goals of APAC. 22 years ago, when my children attended Murrieta schools, there was no APAC. I struggled as an educator. My husband, children, and even distant family members struggled and worried about us living here and educating our children. That worry was validated, unfortunately, for all of us in microaggressions and racial incidents. But there are many successes, and I feel my children who have fled Murrieta for some of these reasons are still a successful product of Murrieta schools. They are both in law school at this time, so I'm still very proud. But as an APAC co-lead, I'm even prouder of the opportunities families have now to feel supported by our district and members of our board. I want to be sure to thank our board members like Linda Lunn, who has showed up at almost every APAC meeting and event. Mrs. Lunn has proven that supporting equity is an action, which means being present. She has set up, cleared, and listen to our APAC families. I also want to thank Monica Gutierrez. For some reason, she shows up to move tables, organize food, and decorate. She's the public information officer, and she's always emptying trash cans. And speaking of trash, our meetings end late, sometimes 10 o'clock, with lots of trash. So I want to give a huge thank you to our night custodians, Maria and Susanna, because some stuff happened here and they cleaned it up. And at our last APAC meeting, we acknowledged parent leadership and our equity coordinator, Tamara Dewey, but we've also acknowledged our assistant superintendent, Faith Munchnadson-Jacks, Superintendent Dr. Andrus Ward, because they are putting their words into action by attending meetings and connecting with our APAC families. So thank you all. I cannot leave the podium without addressing the sadness and disappointment that I feel for some of the things happening in our sister city. You know what I'm talking about. I have high expectations for our board not to follow the political and hate-filled rhetoric. Our children in Murrieta deserve to learn authentic history and develop empathy for all marginalized groups. We celebrate the success of history, examine the failures without erasing or fearing. Teaching 5th graders this year has reminded me that children generally want the best for everyone. If there are mistakes, they are capable of learning from them, striving to be better. That is what history and social studies are for, learning from the mistakes of the past to build an amazing future. These children deserve this because they are the future and should be everything we care about. Thank you, everybody. I also wanted to let you know that our APAC is very connected to some of the Black businesses, and one of which wanted to send you over some pecan pie. Listen, they're in the bags right there, so I don't know if you're allowed to take them, if the police need to check it, but all the board members, we got you some pecan pie. We got you some pecan pie too, so we don't got everybody else though. So, but we want to give that to you. You guys want to wait till the end?
No, we'll take your pecan.
Woo, all right, like that. And this is Ricky right here. She's a RSP teacher from Vista Murrieta. And listen, we were going to bring you pudding, but the pudding shop was closed. So you got pecan pie instead. Equally as amazing. And if you haven't been to Dickey's or Put in Place or Calhoun's, these are some of the Black businesses that support our schools. And we're excited. So I don't think there's any forks in there, but I don't know. Ricky might have done. Oh, she got forks for you. Let's get into it.
That's, yeah.
Following Mr.
Nope.
Kunza will be Jenna Rex. Reeks?
Is it-
It's hard to see. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm not sure I can follow the dessert, but I'll do my best. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Carl Kunza. My wife and I have been residents of Murrieta for over 20 years. Both of our children went through the Murrieta School District from K through 12. Both are currently in college. And if someone was asked my opinion on their education, I would rank it as very good or excellent. So when I heard of the issues and some of the controversy regarding the board, I am an investigator by trade. That's what I do for a living. Did my own investigation, got some information. I felt that it would be important to kind of share my findings and opinions on a couple of things. So the following is going to be directed at Trustee Vandergrift and Trustee Pardue. The two of you are, for lack of a better term, sock puppets for Pastor Tim Thompson. He bankrolled your election. You were drafted at an event at his church, and so you are emboldened to him, right? You can shrug all you want, but you are. So to find out why you're even on the board is very simple. We can look at what Pastor Tim has put on his graciously numerous social media posts. And this is a perfect example. It's from a article from the San Jose Mercury News from March of last year. When this nation was founded, the church was the public square. All roads led to the church. Everyone got together at church to discuss their things that were happening in their community and to find out what their pastor had to say about these things. We're taking back that public square. So if I'm hearing him correctly, the plan is to have a pastor dictate what's being done in our local schools and calling the shots on that. And the plan is to get a majority on the board here, just as they've done in Temecula. And that is absolutely unacceptable. All right. I have no issues with a parent wanting to get a Christian education. There's plenty of private Christian schools in the area. They're excellent. But for a public school system, it's not acceptable because they always follow the same blueprint. And we've seen it in states like Florida and Texas and whatnot. They start out with banning classes and curriculum they don't like, and then they ban the books they don't like, and then they ban the people they don't like. And that's where it goes every time. It's a historical issue that's existed for the last 100 years in this country. Again, private beliefs are fine, but the reason there's a separation of church and state is to prevent this, because most of the people who are okay with this are okay with it because it's their faith. And if it was somebody else's faith, they would be raising the same issues that I'm raising. So in closing, I would like to thank the two of you, however, for giving me the motivation to be involved and coming into every meeting going forward, and me and my other people I know, and having the opportunity to speak with you. I thank you for the time, and I wish you a good evening.
Thank you. Jen
Is there Jen Reeves or Jen
Rex or Reeves?
Jennifer? Okay, seeing none.
Hearing none. Heather Long? Did I say that correctly? Oh, good.
It's an easy name, I think. So my name is Heather Long. I'm an RSP paraprofessional at Reliv Ranch, where I've worked for 17 years. Both of my children came through MVUSD and received an amazing education before going on to graduate college and work in their respective careers. I give MVUSD a lot of credit for giving my children the educational and emotional support that gave them the tools to go on to work in their dream careers. I give this preface to show how important I think the educational setting is in shaping the future of all students. My biological children are grown now, but I see the students I work with and all the students at my school as my children as well. I would love to see them get the same strong foundation that my children received. In order for that to happen, I believe strongly that we need more diversity in all MVUSD staff. I know hiring is coming up, and so I just would like to say a few things to maybe include more diversity. Based on MVUSD 2021 demographics, between 75% and 90% of all staff is white, while our minority students make up 60%. The concern with that is research has shown that students with same-race educators perform better academically and behaviorally. Research also shows having an African-American teacher in the school decreases school discipline rates. If we can decrease school discipline rates, we can decrease the school to prison pipeline. I do not believe MVUSD staff expresses explicit bias toward their students. I've never seen an example of that when I've been working. However, as a 1998 Yale study found, 90 to 95% of people have implicit bias. These biases can and do affect the learning environment and therefore success of all students. How does this happen and why is this important? When an educator does not understand certain cultural differences, innocent behavior can be interpreted as a pattern of negative behavior inherent to the student. A lot of discipline meted out by teachers and administrators is subjective in nature. In a 2014 study, African American students were 3 times as likely as white students to be suspended or expelled. Again, I don't believe that that is explicit bias. I think that is implicit bias. It is for these reasons that I really implore MVUSD to find a way to hire more diverse staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank Donahoe, who will be followed by Raquel Anthony for Angela McLaren. Welcome.
Thank you, President Diffley and board members, Dr. Andrus. My wife and I have moved here to Murrieta 25 years ago and have watched the incredible growth and development of one of the greatest school districts in the state. I mean, you look around at these tenants, imagine that nearly all of these schools were built in a 15-year period, Paul. It's amazing what we accomplished to build a wonderful, wonderful school district through all these challenges. Carol and I were here for the 2008 recession, another major challenge. Districts all across the state and country couldn't handle it, suffered severe problems. This district not only survived that recession, they thrived and they continued to build this wonderful district that we have. So I have just 2 asks for you tonight. Number 1, please respect the incredible men and women who have gone before you, who have built an amazing school district, wonderful school district that we can all be so proud of. And secondly, please respect the men and women, the professionals that you've hired who are operating this school district today. Thank you, Dr. Andrus. Doing a wonderful job and making sure that we maintain this remarkable award-winning school district. Thank you.
Raquel Anthony. Oh, hi.
Hi.
And following Ms. Anthony will be Melanie Cook.
Kirk.
I'm sorry, Kirk. There's a dot on that I see it. Melanie Kirk for Natalie Hartwell.
Okay.
Mrs. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, board. My name is Raquel Anthony. I am also the co-lead with Ms. Rucker for the Murrieta Valley African American Parent Advisory. I'm here right now. I'm reading on behalf of one of our parents who could not be here. She says, good evening. My name is Angela McLaren, and I am an educator, a parent with 2 kids that have graduated and 2 who are continuing their educational journey in this district, and part of the leadership board for the Murrieta Valley Unified School District's many advisory councils. This evening, I will be speaking on behalf of the Parent Leadership Board, students and families of APAC. Murrieta Unified School District APAC has played an intricate part in the growth and success of the African American students and their families in the Murrieta Unified School District. African American students within this district have maintained a 95% or higher graduation rate for the past 4 years or plus, which is high compared to other districts. This is due in part to the work and support that African American students and families receive from this district, as well as the partnership that the students and families have developed with the APAC. APAC assists in closing the gap between MVUSD and their African American students and families. The APAC Leadership Board works to support and educate and inform African American families of district resources, policies, and programs. The APAC Leadership Board works to empower the lives of all African American children and families by providing the knowledge and skills necessary to advocate for high quality educational experiences, while encouraging and supporting families to engage with the educators and administrators in a positive manner. The APAC seeks to change the narrative of how African American families and students view MVUSD and how MVUSD views them. The African American Parent Advisory Council is requesting that MVUSD strive for excellence in all educational partnerships to make sure that our students and families have a chance to succeed within the educational system. APAC asked for MVUSD board to support the work of APAC and come alongside us as we close the gap, continue to increase the graduation rate, and create an accepting and accountable school climate and culture for the African American students of MVUSD. She says, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Natalie Hartwell. You'll be followed by Sierra Guerrera. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Kirk. Mr. Diffley, I'd like to apologize to you because my husband told me that my R's do oftentimes come out looking like C's, thus Melanie Kick and Alfonso Kick. But I am Melanie Kirk, and I am reading on behalf of Natalie Hartwell, who was not able to attend tonight. She says, my name is Natalie Hartwell, and my children have been students within the district since kindergarten. One is a recent graduate, and one has 2 years left in high school. I have been working with the district APAC leadership team for the last 5 years. The work I have had the pleasure of doing with APAC has been some of the most fulfilling work I have done in my life. As a parent of students in the district, having been welcomed and entrusted to help with my influence is invaluable. I do this work for my children, but I also do this for the other children in the district. I do this for all the students in the MVUSD. Knowing that I am privileged to work with such amazing people to help further the advancement, fulfillment, and enrichment of our African American students makes me proud. Understanding that the work I am a part of is to enrich our African American students, yet that work will undoubtedly benefit all the students in the MVUSD is what keeps me doing this work. Because data shows that when schools work to enrich the lives of African American students, everyone else undoubtedly benefits. I say all this to explain how much the MVUSD has invested in our children. MVUSD understands that when you invest in African American children, all children benefit. Having the support of our school board, our superintendent, and our administration is paramount to a strong and effective school district. MVUSD can't have a school board that wavers on this. Not a single member can waver on the importance of inclusion and equity. If any member does, they shouldn't be on the board because this is in direct conflict with the job duties of a school board member. Another point that needs to be made here is that religion is not a belief system that you can then impose on others while you sit on a public school board that represents all children of all backgrounds and religious beliefs. Religion should be a conduit between you and your spiritual power only, not a means to indoctrinate others. Having the privilege of sitting on a public school board means your political and religious beliefs cannot motivate or influence your decisions. If you cannot make governing decisions without that influence, then this job is not for you. I'm reading this for Natalie Hartwell, and I didn't say it, but I 100% agree with her comments.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, good evening to you all. My name is Sierra Guerra, or oh no, okay. I just got here. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold on, I'm starting over now.
Does that mean I get an extra
We're
minute?
still learning this.
Okay, all right, here we go. Good evening to you all. My name is Sierra Guerra, or that cool, loudmouth, yet effective mother of the APAC leadership team. I am also that 17-year Navy service member currently serving as a reservist. Don't I still look good?
Go Navy.
I am also the therapist who spends countless hours with youth and adolescent population and sometimes reluctantly adults. More importantly, I am the mother to 3 beautiful children in the Murrieta Valley School District, one of which is entering TK, so I pray for that teacher, and the other entering 7th grade, who maintained a 4.0 GPA the whole entire year, with the vision of becoming a veterinarian. Although having a full plate, I have had and still have the distinguished honor of collaborating with my fellow APAC leaders of upholding and pushing forward the goals of APAC. What I'm not here to do is highlight a 2018 National Institute Health article that studies show, despite the rhetoric of American equality, that schools' experiences of African American and other minority students in the U.S. still continues to be substantially separate and unequal. Also, I am not here to highlight that the same study states that California schools have experienced continuous cutbacks over the last decade, but prison populations have increased by more than 300%. Or the opportunities for gifted or advanced African American studies were not offered or available to African American students. Studies show that the congruence of structure inequality and access to knowledge, resource students from racial and ethnic minority groups in the U.S. face persistent and profound barriers to educational opportunities. What I'm here to do is emphasize the partnership between education leaders and the community by creating school environments that recognize students' assets, nurture those strengths, and achieve successes. The evidence-based family engagement plan that respects Black parents as equal partners applies an asset-based lens to the community and addresses implicit biases among the district that can build trust and community support to benefit Black students. I believe that Murrieta University, Murrieta Valley, y'all know the district we in, has invested in all our children, also African American children, and support our school board superintendent and admin is paramount, and the importance of inclusion and equity is paramount. If the foundation of the district is not congruent in this, then we as a district fail. Thank you.
Moving on to B3, we'll hear from Kimberly Benning Shevlin, the president of the Murrieta Education Educators Association. Welcome. You can type slowly, it's okay.
Okay, good evening, members of the board, Dr. Andrus, and our guests. MEA would like to congratulate Adriana Toon from Avaha Elementary School on being selected to be part of the 23-24 CTA Human Rights Cadre Training Program. The California Teachers Association, CTA, Human and Civil Rights Cadre Training Program is a commendable initiative aimed at promoting social justice and equity in education. The program equips educators with the necessary knowledge and skills to create inclusive and culturally responsive learning environments. The cadre training emphasizes the importance of fostering a sense of belonging for all students, regardless of their background or identity. By engaging in critical conversations and exploring strategies to dismantle systemic barriers, educators are better equipped to advocate for rights and well-being of their students. The CTA Human and Civil Rights Cadre Training Program plays a vital role in shaping educators who are committed to promoting social justice, equity, and inclusivity in California schools. And the next part, dedicated MEA members will continue the work of the association throughout the summer. Over the 4th of July, 4 members of MEA have been elected to represent us at the annual NEA Representative Assembly. They are Chrissy Anderson Huber of Murrieta Mesa High School, Steve Basin of Antelope Hills Elementary, Teresa Basin of Rail Ranch Elementary, and we will spend a week advocating to improve our public schools. The National Education Association Representative Assembly is an aspiring gathering that showcases the power and unity of collective action in the field of education. As one of the largest democratic deliberative bodies in the world, the Representative Assembly brings together thousands of passionate educators from across the country to shape the future of education. This annual event serves as a platform for teachers, education support professionals, and advocates to share ideas, exchange best practices, and engage in meaningful discussions about the critical issues facing our schools. It is a space where diverse voices are heard and decisions are made with the collective well-being of students and educators at heart. The Representative Assembly empowers educators to take an active role in shaping education policy, advancing social justice, and promoting equitable opportunities for all our students. Through this gathering, the NEA reaffirms its commitment to advocating for high-quality public education and provides a powerful reminder of the dedication and passion of those working in this profession. Later in July, Lisa Murray and I, Lisa's from Dorothy McElhaney, we will spend a week in Burlingame at the CTA President's Conference, and we'll be there learning about the responsibilities and roles of leadership in our association. Followed by another week in July, team members will be at UCLA for CTA Summer Institute. MEA team members will learn the ins and outs of negotiating, James, education finance, and chapter communications. The CTA Summer Institute is a transformative professional development experience that offers educators a unique opportunity to enhance their skills, expand their knowledge, and connect with like-minded professionals. This annual event, organized by the California Teachers Association, brings together teachers, administrators, and education support professionals from across the state to engage in diverse range of workshops, seminars, and hands-on sessions. The Summer Institute is designed to address the evolving needs and challenges of the education field, providing participants with cutting-edge strategies, research-based practices, and innovative tools to elevate their teaching practices. Through engaging keynote speakers, interactive sessions, and collaborative networking opportunities, educators are inspired to deepen their understanding of educational equity, social justice, and inclusive teaching methodologies. The Summer Institute not only empowers educators to enhance their own professional growth, but also encourages them to become change agents within their own schools and communities. CTA Summer Institute is a vibrant and enriching experience that equips educators with the knowledge, skills, and inspiration to create positive and impactful learning environments for their students. I'm going to skip to my personal point of view, think that this speaks volumes about how strongly Murrieta teachers feel about not only providing an adequate education to Murrieta's children, but providing an excellent education opportunity. And I will also say at this moment that my child is a legacy of Murrieta School District, and I have 2 grandchildren in the Murrieta School District, and I could not be happier in this district. So to end my discussion, I'd like to say happy Pride to those who celebrate. And if you are an MEA member in the audience right now, remember to check in with Lisa Murray. She's right there in the gray. She's waving for the raffle. So, and thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. We'll move on now to B4, which is called Board Member Reports. And Mr. Pardue, would you lead us on?
All right. Well, I've said this before. I'm always frustrated in the past being a new board member. I've only been to a few board meetings prior to that, that the board members wouldn't respond to the things that were said. That was always frustrating to me. So I do want to respond a little bit. One, I would love to be at an APAC meeting. I would love to be part of that and see what's going on. So I'm assuming that's an open invitation as a new member. That would be great. And I think I had a gentleman said he did some investigation into me. Please include an email or a phone call so that you can get right from the primary source, because that's the best way to get to know somebody. And speaking of my dark money, my mother is very proud of me being on this board. She's still alive and she lives in Nevada. And it says how well I did fundraising, I guess, that she was such a big part of it. And my father lives in Arizona. I'll be seeing him this weekend. So in terms of out-of-state contributions, that's a family member that's pretty proud, or a couple family members actually. We're at the end of the school year. Oh, I think the other issue is my faith. Pastor Tim was quite disturbed to find out that I'm Catholic, and he was disturbed also that that I was running, and then discovered that, well, Catholics share some family values, and we had a meeting, and here I am. I am not a puppet. I'm nobody's puppet, and that is a problem for lots of people. Please take your time to get to know me before you start judging me. I think that's really, really important. And I'm disturbed to know that I've been here for 6 months, and some of you keep coming, saying the same thing, not sending me an email, not giving me a call. And to me, that says that you're not being very honest in trying to solve problems or to bring our community together, because that's the big issue. Is our community should be united. This is a great place to raise kids. I raised 3 kids here. My kids all went to this school. In fact, my youngest just graduated. She will be attending college in Reno to be closer to family. That's in Nevada, so you know. And my kids have done excellent. My kids have played sports, played basketball, they're coaches, every race, color, creed, you name it. Our kids get along. All our kids in this community get along. There's times, obviously, there's times in which there's conflict and different things, but it's important for us to come together, and we keep this community strong by building relationships. And you build relationships by reaching out to people who don't think like you, don't look like you, don't act like you. And I would encourage everybody in this room to do just that. If you didn't see me at an APAC meeting, please invite me. I have an email address. Come and talk to me. Wait to talk to me. I've had some people take me up on this. I've had about 3 or 4 people, and we've had great conversations. Whatever your concerns are, I can guarantee you I can allay your fears. I'm here to support kids. I've been in education for well over 25 years. I've had every kid under the sun in my classroom. And I've had positive experiences. I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy the kids. I've coached girls basketball for a long time. I enjoy seeing kids grow, flourish, be happy, play together, get along together. That's what we all want for our children. And that's definitely what I want. So I would just encourage everyone in the audience, if it comes to me specifically, take the time. And I think that would be good for everybody, I think, concerned. We can set an example for the rest of the people in the community. Anyway, the end of high school for me as a basketball coach and as a teacher is always a time to reflect, right? And reflecting both on my position as a school board member, my position as a teacher, how'd the school year go? What are some things I can improve on? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And I know for one thing, and I brought this up in one of our meetings, was this profile of a high school graduate. As a teacher, I've sat through lots of meetings, and one of the things I'll just tell the public out loud that has been frustrating to both my wife and I is we like to put a really happy smile on things, but we complain to each other a lot. Not my wife and I, teachers just generally, they all grumble a little bit like, hey, this didn't go so great. And gosh, I really wish this didn't happen. I wish we could address this or do that. That was actually my motivation for joining the school board, because I thought that I had a unique perspective, a kind of behind the curtain look at what's going on with education. And I thought I would bring that perspective to the school board and be able to help solve some of those problems. That was really my goal and my intention. My religious beliefs really they're important to me, trust me, but they're not important for me to share with you. With that being said, how do we measure success? That was my big thing. Teachers sitting in a classroom, we teach, and the question is, are the kids learning? And when we measure that as a district, what are we measuring? Because I always hear about our graduation rate, but what does that really mean? They're A through G compliant. Okay. What are their skill sets? How well do they read and write? What are their math skills? And we have noticed a decline in that in the classroom. And that's a concern. That's a real serious concern. And that's all students. And that's where I think our focus needs to be as a school board. The other thing, as a young teacher, I remember hearing this, and I might be wrong on this. Some other teacher could probably correct me. Unintended curriculum, tardies, attendance, on time, classroom behavior. How do you interact with an adult? I let my students know I'm kind of a pseudo your boss, right? In the future, you're going to like your boss. You're going to hate your boss. One way or the other, you have to learn how to interact with them in a positive way. Right. I'm blessed to have juniors and seniors. I teach economics, and we talked about this a little bit, but I think that's important for our kids to understand. Right. That's an important part as we come out of COVID and we start getting into, hey, get your stuff turned in on time. You can't just turn it in whenever you want to. We got to start getting serious about holding kids accountable and making sure that our teachers are being treated well in the classroom. I've had a number of teachers talk about some discipline issues with junior highs and some of the things that are going on in the high school, junior high bathrooms that are kind of the unmentionable things that get swept under the rug a little bit. I want to make sure that respect is an important part of what our students focus on. And last but not least, critical thinking is huge. Political ideologies, they're not always what they seem. A lot of times it's for political power. This is for persuasion, and there's propaganda everywhere. And we live in a world where critical thinking is really, really important. To be educated, you need to have critical thinking skills. You need to question the information you're getting, whether it's about a school board member or it's about something else that's going on in the world. You have to be able to question these things and not take it just whatever that's called. Make sure you check things out, and our students are thinking critically about all issues and understand that they could be misled just as easily as adults are. All right, that's all my comments for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Young, and she'll be followed by Mrs. Vandegrift.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I will make one quick comment. I don't respond to public comments because I learned not to in my Brown Act training. But anyway, I did have the pleasure of attending Murrieta Mesa's graduation ceremony on June 1st. And in the beginning, there was a reception, and my fellow board member, Mr. Dipley, was there, as well as members of the cabinet, school administrators, and there were 3 Murrieta City Council members there. I had met John Lavelle last year at an event. It was the first time I met Ron Holiday and Lori Stone. I did appreciate getting to know them a little bit better. I do think it's important that the district work with the city and the city council. We have a lot of common interests. And it's just, for me, it's always a pleasure being able to spend time with members of our cabinet, site administrators. I got to meet a couple more teachers and be able to chat with them and some other staff. I was really impressed with the whole ceremony. It was really beautiful, dignified, and at least from my perspective, it went off without a hitch. It was obvious to me that their principal, Richard Scott, has a really good rapport with his students. He also has a great sense of humor, which for me, that means a lot. Their valedictorian was Yessi Yusuf. She really did have a very moving story, especially because she's from an immigrant family, did not speak English as her first language. I think she said she was around 7 or 8 years old when she came here. Her reference to Rory Gilmore being her inspiration for trying to become valedictorian really made me laugh. I used to watch that show too. And I really liked they had a big screen over the stage, which I really appreciated. I've not seen that at schools I've worked at. It was huge, and they were projecting what they were talking about. But as students were coming up and getting their diplomas and shaking people's hands, they were projecting the students. And why I think that's important, there were hundreds of students on the field, and then over on the other side in the stands, there were thousands of people. And it allowed the families to actually see get a close-up of their kids from afar. I just thought that was great. So, I want to give kudos to the district for that. I don't have a lot more events to talk about. I've been busy wrapping up my own school year, which ended on Friday. I am working my way through the Master's in Governance program. I've done the first course. I'm signed up for the second. I will do all of them. And, I'm here to support student achievement, student well-being, and also our very competent and hardworking staff. I think they often don't get the recognition and respect that they deserve. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Well, switching gears here a little bit. We've been talking about the LCAP, and today we're going to be getting a presentation on the budget. And so one of the privileges of being on the board is you get all these nice things from the California School Board Association. This is the Schools magazine. And I was struck by this, the CEO's note that I thought probably, we're all done with bargaining for the year, and the May revision just came out, and we had the capital advisors come to the last meeting. And anyway, this just really, there have been articles that I've been reading recently that are all kind of talking about the same thing. But this one in particular, winter is coming for California schools. This is Vernon Billy, winter's coming, which sounds very, chilling. I don't watch this, I don't, Game of Thrones, I know it's a very popular show. I know nothing about it, but this article is written kind of with that theme in mind. But so I'm just going to read a little bit of this to you. 10 years of summertime has allowed complacency to set in, so the warning of winter's approach is especially ominous. Yet, unbeknownst to Ned, this particular winter will bring not only cold, but also supernatural forces that threaten the well-being of the kingdom.
So what does this have to do with public schools? We are basking in the gentle light of spring, but rest assured winter is coming. The financial cold front bearing down on public education is unlike any we've seen in a decade. It may not be obvious to the public, to the legislature, or to school staff. Even some of our newer board members or superintendents may fail to recognize it, but those who have been here before can sense a chill in the air. And if we fail to diligently prepare for the harsh change of seasons, the results will be catastrophic for public schools and the students we serve. So I'll skip a little bit here, but anybody can see this article. It's online, CSBA Schools Magazine. If state revenues continue to plunge along with the Prop 98 guarantee, our ability to provide the instruction, services, and support students need will diminish at a time when it's never been more critical. So anyway, that's the first article I wanted to point out. So then I want to back up a year. So in May 2022, in the New York Times, there was an article, California expects a record budget surplus of nearly $100 billion. So that was a year ago. And so now we have a deficit of between 30 and 40 billion. So that was a year ago. I'll put that aside. Then in the Washington Free Beacon this year, just in May, California budget hole even deeper than predicted, Newsom says. So he warned that even a mild economic recession could bring an additional $40 billion hit. He blamed the state's progressive tax system. This is Newsom talking here. He blamed the state's progressive tax system, which leans heavily on the richest Californians, for the dramatic decline in fortunes since a year ago when he touted the $97.5 billion budget. Los Angeles Times says, this is May 29th, Newsom's budget math doesn't add up. There's a less than 1 in 6 chance the state can afford the May revision spending level across the 5-year period. Newsom finds himself in an unaccustomed role. Budget trouble is a new predicament for him. Until now, he has been lucky enough to escape the politically risky dilemma that has confronted virtually every California governor for the past 64 years. The need to erase budget deficits, usually with higher taxes plus spending cuts. One culprit is California's ultra-progressive state income tax that Newsom lauds. Stoke the rich may be a popular concept, but it results in a very volatile tax system that leans too heavily on the wealthy. The top 1% of California earners pay nearly 50% of the state income tax. And when the economy staggers and falls, so do wealthy people's capital gains, and they pay less taxes. And then the last article that I just want to point out to kind of give an overview of what California is facing with education. This is an editorial by Art Laffer. He's famous for the Laffer curve. California's lost adjusted gross income. In soft peddling the state's current fiscal woes, Governor Gavin Newsom said, "A progressive tax system allows us to stack away billions and billions of dollars for exactly this moment." But what's the problem with that? The 1%ers who pay 50% of the tax are leaving California in droves. California's loss in adjusted gross income from the migrating 1%ers, which is $100 billion over this is not revenue, this is adjusted gross income, is from 2018 to 2021, $100 billion, and this is cumulative. Once they leave, they don't come back. So every year that we lose, it's, more and more. So that, and the rate is accelerating of these, these high income people leaving. And then if you consider all the adjusted gross incomes under the 200,000 threshold, it brings the cumulative decline in California's adjusted gross income to $215 billion. So I just want to circle back around because as a district, we're going to have to, face this, but winter is coming for California schools, and this is from the California School Board Association, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Lund.
All right. Well, the first part of the month, I did attend the CSBA Delegate Assembly, where I am a delegate. Give you a quick update here.
these are just some things that are moving along. Of course, no laws have been passed or anything, but they're moving along from committee to committee. There's some really interesting stuff going on for cyber safety for students and mental health funding. So that's a plus, that's positive. I would like to highlight AB 417, which is the County Office of Education Student Board members. They're looking to implement that, and I'd like to congratulate Murrieta for being ahead of the curve on that and kind of leading the way. And as I was able to speak at the Delegate Assembly about our student board members and hearing student voice, I got a lot of interest, and many people have now asked for our policy, so I've been able to direct them to that. So once again, we're leaders. Very pleased with that. Another one I'd like to nope, I'm not gonna talk about any more of them because they're all just in the process, and we just need to pay attention to them and see what's going along. And the biggest thing that we're trying to really focus on is asking the state for fewer categorical funding options. And what that means is they give you $100, but they say, but 80 of it has to do this and 20 of it can do this. And that it's one size fits all, and we are not one size fits all. And our district needs more local control. If you're going to give us $100, just give us $100. Okay, we'll report back on to you what we've done with it, and you can make your decisions on whether we spent it appropriately and it has actually benefited students. But the categorical stuff just is really tough to work with. So if anybody asks you, say stop it with the categorical. For the past month, I have been, as usual, very busy, and I was able to go to the induction colloquium. Our induction program is sort of a peer leadership between veteran teachers and newer teachers. And every year in the spring, they do this big colloquium where they talk about what they've learned and what they're going to get to your program, what they're going to go into doing next year. And a really interesting thing that I heard was all of these new teachers are so invested in differentiated teaching, which means teaching students of all levels within one class. And I remember, I won't tell you when it was because you'll do the math and then I'll be embarrassed. A long time ago when I was in school, where we had, the low readers, the average readers, and the high readers, and those kids were labeled that way. And what these teachers today are learning to do is to bring everybody along by differentiating their teachers. Now, or they're differentiating their teaching and their curriculum within the classroom and their teaching style. It's a lot of work, but our new teachers coming in are doing it, and they're amazing. And they talked about the science and the craft of teaching and the passion that they bring to it. And I was so impressed with their professionalism. It was an awesome thing. And if you ever want to listen in on that in the spring, I would really encourage you to do it. You'll feel great about our teachers. We've got some great teachers coming up. I also met with the teachers regarding the science curriculum, and I think we made some headway. We definitely got a roadmap for where we're going with that with the district, and that looks good. I had the great pleasure to job shadow Miguel Espinoza, who is the lead custodian at Murrieta Valley Monte Vista Elementary School. He's the night custodian, and so I met him at 3:30, and we got to work cleaning the school. And I was just very impressed with his dedication and his understanding of who was coming into those classrooms after he cleaned them and why he had to clean them in the way he did. It was awesome. And little interesting fact, guess whose cousin he is? Oscar Rivas, our favorite, right? Who used to be a board member. So yeah, that was a little, small world moment for me. I got to go to the Murrieta Canyon Academy graduation ceremony, which is awesome. That's our alternative school. I got to go to the adult transition program graduation, which is just across the street. And that's for our 18 to 22-year-old disabled adult students who learn job skills and life skills. And it was great to see them graduate out of that. We used to have those students at high schools, and you have to imagine what it would be like to be a 19, 20, or 22-year-old student, a young adult, and still be on a high school campus learning. So our ATP program over here is just awesome for really, launching them into life. And then, of course, I did the Vista High School graduation ceremony, which I just got. It felt like every third kid that came through I knew and had known since kindergarten. So it was awesome to hug them and watch them launching out, all of our little ducklings going on. Through Rotary, we gave out 3 CTE scholarships to deserving students. That's through the Al Volbrecht Foundation, and I was very pleased to do that. And they were all students here in our district. And let's see what else I've got. I think that's it. I just want to say thank you to everyone. This has been an exciting year, and lots of things going on, and lots of stuff to deal with.
across the district, I want to say thank you to all of our staff members who kept it going. I'd like to say everyone this summer go off the grid, although I know that our facilities and most of our DO staff here, they're kicking into high gear, and that's when they get a lot of work done. But to especially our classroom staff, if you can, go off the grid, stop checking email, even for a week. Don't answer your phone, don't answer text. Okay, Mrs. Murray's nodding, and I've got one fan there. Okay. To take care of ourselves, to decompress. We've got 8 weeks. Let's take advantage of it. I was so pleased to see so many friendly faces here in the audience and people that I've known for so many years. And a lot of them have left, unfortunately, but thank you everyone for coming and have a great summer.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was privileged to attend Mesa's graduation along with Mrs. Young. And she alluded to the fact that prior to the graduation, in about 30 minutes, we were assembled upstairs in the second floor of the new addition to the classroom building, just to make sure that our regalia fit, you know, it was tied in the right place and all that sort of thing. We didn't embarrass ourselves, but also to take advantage of a beautiful view. It was a perfect night. Still actually early evening, and you could look out and just think wonderful thoughts about all that was happening, when all of a sudden a hawk with a wingspan like this came by and almost brushed the window. He wasn't flapping his wings, he was just sort of hanging, and he sort of took a look and took off down over the field. I thought, isn't that perfect?
Mm-hmm.
A chance to fly, a chance to get away, and what are our kids doing tonight but taking off? And oh, what a sight that was. It brings me to tonight, listening to the parents who've spoken very eloquently about various topics, and our staff as well. The primary person in your child's life is you, the parent. We do the best we can. I speak from being in education over 40 years, but I know that your job is 24/7. You don't get a summer vacation unless everybody else does. And, you know, sometimes it gets tedious doing washing or doing dishes over and over and over again. But the things that you do are things that help your children see what things are important in life. And you are extremely important. I'm so glad that you're here, all of you, whether you are on staff or whether you're from the city or just, I won't say just a parent, but a parent. It takes all of us in various capacities to do what we do. I want to say to our staff, Mrs. Shevlin and Mrs. Jacks, if you could convey over the summer our gratitude for the people who teach, the people who keep our campuses clean, the people who mow the lawns, do all the work, a lot of things that are never seen, because they too, in their way, bring great value to the upbringing and education of the students in this district. And I want to say, you know, I go on, but I just want to say that I'm thrilled to death to have a club of parents on campus, and we have several now, in this case, African American. But there was such a long time that we did not have such a good connection. Same with the Latinos. But I'm glad that we have that connection. And I'm thankful for graduation in so many different ways. Thank you, parents. Thank you, staff. As they say in English class, you done good. Now we'll move on to C, and that is the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are voted on collectively as a group. Upon board member request, items may be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and individual action. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar items C1 through C8 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
We have a chorus. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. I call now on Nick Pardue. Oh, sorry, did I miss one? One more. Oh, here it is, yeah. It's exciting, somebody. Oh, okay, well. Moving to D, adoption of resolution number 22/2322, authorizing compensation for board member Nicholas Pardue for his absence at the May 25th, 2023 special board meeting. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now I will call upon Nicholas
Just
Pardue.
to clarify, Mr. Pardue, did you vote or abstain?
I abstain.
Thank you. So
I'm
four-
sorry, I didn't hear that. But
That's
that's
okay.
good.
I'm just following through. Thank you.
4-0. 4 out of 5, 1 abstention.
We got it.
Now, for the third time, we'll try and call on Mr. Pardue, clerk of the board, for report out language prior to the board taking action on items D2 and D3 coming up.
Yes.
Yes.
No, where it says the board is.
The board is considering a salary increase and approval of an amendment to the superintendent's employment agreement, both effective July 1, 2023. Prior to taking final action, Government Code Section 54953 requires an oral summary of the recommendation for approval on the salary schedules, and/or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive during open session of a regular meeting in which the final action is to be taken. Accordingly, I am providing an oral summary of the recommendations being considered by the board today. The term of the superintendent's employment agreement remains July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2026. As reflected on the amendment, the superintendent's annual salary will be $336,821, effective July 1, 2023, payable in 12 equal monthly installments. The new salary includes a 7% increase, which was also provided to other employee groups and the district's senior management, a step adjustment, and an increase resulting from the elimination of a travel and transportation stipend. Except as modified by the amendment, the current employment agreement shall remain in full force and effect.
Thank you. Now we move on to D2. Approval of 7% salary increase for superintendent effective July 1, 2023. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, yes, you can.
I will just remind everybody in attendance, because it was brought up, the inflation is ridiculous, and salaries, we are in a competitive environment for personnel, and that includes superintendents. It's important that we're all aware of that. And 7% is actually below inflation rates. That's the end of my comment.
Thank you.
I'll also add that when we were doing the superintendent selection last year, we had to really adjust the superintendent salary to even like hit mid-ground competitively to bring in good candidates. So luckily we got Dr. Andrus.
Thank you. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. 5-0 in favor. D3 is approval of amendment to employment contract for District Superintendent Dr. Ward Andrus, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2026. The Board of Education presented a satisfactory evaluation to Dr. Andrus during closed session on June 8th, 2023. I'd like to read out the following executive summary. The board has evaluated Dr. Andrus in the following areas: board relations, personnel, instructional program, non-instructional program, and community relations. In each area, the board has found Dr. Andrus to meet or exceed expectations. During his first year, Dr. Andrus has delved deeply into our community, built relationships with the board members, and worked to further our hiring and retention of outstanding employees. He has overseen the development of the profile of a graduate and is expertly supporting and overseeing staff as they continue to improve our instructional efforts. As an instructional leader, Dr. Andrus has refocused our efforts on hands-on learning, high levels of collaboration, and encouraged out-of-the-box thinking. He has also focused on non-instructional areas such as resource allocation to support our Visual and Performing Arts program, VAPA, and addressing our faculty needs. Facility needs. As we reach the end of his first year of service to MVUSD, the board commends Dr. Andrus for his outstanding leadership, tremendous commitment, energy, and work ethic, and his true dedication to and passion for providing the best education possible to the students of Murrieta Valley Unified School District while providing the best work environment for our employees. We are eager to see what accomplishments the 2023-2024 school year brings. Now I call for a motion and a second for the approval of amendment to employment contract for District Superintendent Dr. Ward Andrus, effective July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2026.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments?
I would just like to thank Dr. Andrus for an outstanding year. Excuse me, when we were doing the superintendent search, we sent out a community survey and it went out through newspapers and social media. It went out to parents. Everybody got it. And the overwhelming response we got was not, just keep doing everything the same, but don't change everything. Don't mess it up. Hire someone who's going to, do it the Murrieta way. And Dr. Andrus and I have had multiple conversations over the past year about the Murrieta way. And I have been so pleased to watch him not come in and say, ta-da, here's how we're going to do it. This is my philosophy. No, he took this entire year to learn who we are, who the Murrieta community is and what the Murrieta community wants. And he educated himself on that. And it took a tremendous amount of his time. I have been so impressed with his dedication to learning about who we are and how we do things and our history and how we can just continue to get better. I'm so pleased with that. I have also, on a personal note, been so pleased with your sense of humor. There have been times when we have found ourselves in absolutely absurd situations, and you have done such a awesome job of grounding me back with humor. We laugh about everything and just shake our heads and go, I can't believe this. But I have so appreciated that. Thank you. And it helps remind everyone to focus on what really matters, which is student learning and achievement, to cut out the manufactured noise around us and get back to students.
Thank you. I would like to add just a statement that Dr. Andrus has done an excellent job with onboarding and developing relationships in what could be a really tricky situation. We see so much that's happening in our world, and I really feel like we're trying so hard to do a good job with difficult circumstances. And I think you've been a great moderating voice in that to this point, and I appreciate your efforts. And I hope we can continue to have a good working relationship and we can set an example for the entire valley.
Thank you. Thank you to the board for the approvals and the evaluations I expressed last week. If the public ever wants to see what it's like to be a superintendent, which is funny, everybody says, I would never want your job. It's a tough one, but look at a job description for a superintendent or the application, like these are the characteristics we're looking for. Some of you in the room know because you've written them. You pretty much have to be deity, and I am not. But I try to do what I can do every day. I mean, I pour into myself into this community because I live here too. I moved here. I know what it takes to do this job, and that's what I'm doing. It doesn't mean I'm perfect because there's room to grow. We're all human. And as we were reminded, and so there's room to grow and the good things coming forward and things to do. And I appreciate the feedback and commentary from the board, even in the evaluation document specifically. There's opportunities for me to reflect and think about how can we take this to the next level. And cabinet members, you'll see it tomorrow afternoon if you haven't already looked at the agenda. So that's coming. So thank you.
And just incidentally, it's board policy, I think 2122, 2123, that outlines the superintendent's job description. And it is illuminating, it is terrifying, it is pages long. And I encourage everyone to look at it before you have an opinion.
Thank you. I'd like to personally add the fact that every month, the superintendent and I sit down individually, which he does with the other board members, and we have a discussion about what's coming up and what good has gone on and what was not so good, which are very few and far between, and ideas for the future. I want to tell you and swear to you that much of our conversation has to do with new programs, new directions in career tech education. And it is very, very exciting to be in on these discussions. When I watched Dr. Andrus when he first alighted here, I don't know if he slept the first week at all. I'm not sure he did. But he was constantly on the go, visiting classrooms, doing this, doing that, learning all the names of all the staff. That's tough. There's a big staff. They do a lot of different things. He got my name right the fourth or fifth time. That's great. But I want to say I was very impressed. Dr. Andrus, I've never seen him down. I've always seen him approach a problem saying, well, what can we do to make it better? And I think it's going to be a great 4 years coming up. There are a lot of things happening which we cannot tell you about yet, but it's going to be fun. Your kids are going to be glad.
It's going to be good for kids.
Any other comments? Hearing none. The motion and the second have been commented on. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Moving on to D4, this is the approval of personnel report. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D5, approval of the 2023/24 certificated and classified staffing plans. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Comments?
Did I notice correctly that there were almost 21 certificated positions added? 20.78.78?
Mr. Wright, you want to comment?
That is accurate.
That's specifically for I think our TK positions primarily. Is that correct?
The majority would be TK positions related to the lower levels.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. Motion has been presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D5, approval of the 2023/2024 certificated and classified staffing plans.
Just did that one.
We did that one. What's on? Well, let's go to this one. D6, approval of the local control and accountability plan 2023-24 budget overview for parents and state dashboard local performance indicators. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. Carol, no. D7, approval of proposed new AP US history curriculum. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments?
It's about time.
Sounds good. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D8, receive Williams Uniform Complaints Quarterly Report. Nothing has been complained about.
Correct.
D9, adoption of the 2023-24 fiscal school year budget for the Murrieta Valley Unified School District and certification of review of budget in accordance with state adopted criteria and standards. Mr. Whittington, would you enlighten us?
So as Mr. Whittington gets ready, just want to share, we appreciate the hard work that goes into the budget development. It is a moving target, especially when the governor decides mid-year he's going to pull back dollars from your current budget. It's difficult. That's why it's an ongoing process and they're a budget, not a fixed expense account type thing that we do. And so it's quite a bit of a process. So I appreciate the hard work that goes into this. Also, just for the board's information, there'll be a few items that follow this adoption that are related to the budget. So some of those additional resolutions are all part of the annual process.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. Good evening, board. Before you tonight is the 23-24 proposed budget. And like Dr. Andrews said, it's a very large process moving through the budget and all the technical details that go through it. So I'd like to first acknowledge our Director of Fiscal Services, Samantha Tumayan, who cannot be here this evening, but runs the technical aspects of that and make sure she's coordinating with all the different departments and sites to make sure we're tabulating and quantifying all the different elements in partnership with Ed Services, Human Resources, Student Support, and all the like. So as we dive into the budget, I wanted to remind everybody what the budget timeline is in California. So we're here just past graduation and we're getting ready to adopt our budget for next year. The governor proposes what he calls the May revise in May, and that's the last real point in time where we have economic data and indication from the state of what the budget's going to look like. And so we use that data to prepare the budget. And so there's this lag that happens because negotiations continue at the state level. We just have heard that the Assembly and the Senate, State Senate, have reached an agreement on what the budget's going to be, but then they continue to negotiate with the governor. So that process continues to happen over the coming weeks in June. And then if they all want to get paid at the end of the month, they adopt a budget prior to June 30th. So then we get the enacted state budget. And then what will happen is once that enacted state budget is, we need the authorizing trailer bill language that comes with all the details and all the elements of the budget. And so we will propose or present to you a 45-day revise of all the key elements of things that have changed since we've adopted the budget this evening and what the impacts are of the true enacted state budget that happens. That'll come in August to you guys to see. So tonight, the budget is based on the governor's May revise and those economic factors that were used at that point in time. Some major themes in the from the governor and the state legislature as we've gone through the budget process, starting way back in January even, there's a high level of uncertainty, as was illuminated earlier for the revenues at the state level. The income tax deadline was extended for the vast majority of Californians all the way until October. So what we usually have is in April, we have seen the vast majority of state tax collections, and we have a pretty good foundation as we build the budget. This year, we have an extension all the way into October, where we won't see the true state revenue picture for the current year we're in until several months into next year. And so there's a high level of uncertainty that comes with that. The one potential positive is it's likely that most folks that were seeking refunds in most cases filed on the April deadline, and it'll be good news in October because those people that owe tax dollars that are waiting to pay for it until October. Both the governor and the state legislature have made an acknowledgement of the progress towards educational investments over the last decade, and so there's been a lot of growth and investment into education in California and in terms of dollars that have been invested in education. And so there's a acknowledgement that they don't want to lose that progress as we head into tougher economic times. You know, there's always a recession around the corners is the key thing. And eventually you're right when you say that. And so there is an acknowledgement about proceeding cautiously forward, but we are in a high inflation environment. There are still some proposals in the state budget for what I would call favored priorities of the governor and the state legislature. So we saw investments in dyslexia funding, the expanded learning opportunities program, and a couple other niche programs. And so we continue to see another point that was illuminated earlier, these investments in very narrow categorical programs. And what that will do to us as a district is it presents us with this dichotomy where we are cutting base educational programs and investing in these niche programs. And so it puts us in an odd position to be cutting out of the regular classroom, but expanding over here in this categorical. So I would echo the sentiment that we don't want any of those categoricals coming through. So looking ahead to what our budget actually looks like, we have to make some assumptions. At this point in time, we project the budget for the current year and 2 out years. That's the way we always do the budget. That's what's prescribed in law. And so the biggest adjustments in the budget this year that you guys have in front of you are the COLA factors that affect LCFF. And so we projected in line with what was presented at the May revise and what it was agreed to in those negotiations between the Senate and the Assembly, an 8.22% COLA for next year, and then much smaller COLAs, but historically actually still very high COLAs at 3.94% and 3.29% in the 2 out years respectively. Our funding is based on our average daily attendance, which incorporates what I would call smoothing to the declines we've experienced during COVID. There's been some ADA protections, and so that has helped mitigate some of what would be funding losses for us as a district. We have also projected attendance based on our current trend. During COVID, our attendance rates dropped drastically down to the low 90s, which was high for most parts of this county. We saw some recovery of our attendance rates up to like a 92.1%. And so we've used that going forward. Our historical attendance rate, though, is in the 95%. So there's still some room to grow if we can get students attending school more regularly, which will trigger more funding for us. On the expenditure side, we have adjustments to reflect our projected enrollment and program needs. The big one would be TK expansion and the TK model we're implementing and the staffing that is needed to implement that. We're seeing large increases in our statutory pension costs, both on the side of CalPERS and CalSTRS as our payroll increases, our contributions to pension systems increase, and then on the CalPERS side, the contribution rate has also increased. And so those are both costs a little bit out of our control when it comes to contribution rate.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Attendance is still is tied to funding?
Correct, yes. So we are funded Well,
Was it adjusted a little bit, or is it what it was prior to COVID?
it's the same model. The one adjustment is we now look at the highest of the last 3 years or prior year.
Oh,
or
okay.
current year.
So it's a little modified.
A little bit modified, but it's still based on attendance in each of those situations.
And the state is requiring TK. You had mentioned this before. The state's making requirements, but not funding those requirements.
So they're funding certain age ranges of students by birthday.
Mhm.
And so we're going to accelerate our efforts because it also does what we have discovered by looking at our student data is that once we have students in our schools, they stay in our schools.
Sure they do.
And so we attract them in at a younger age, even if it may come at a slight cost to us, because we know in the long run, they're going to stay for kinder and with us for their duration. And so we're making an investment by expanding a little earlier, accelerating the timeline, the state's timeline of that. So, and those students also, those youngsters also generate income to develop, pay for like the additional teachers that were mentioned. And so to service them.
I wanted to clarify, you had mentioned that the state is requiring this.
Yes.
And they are not providing additional funds for that specific program.
There is funding for TK.
There is
additional class size requirements. There is funding for that.
But not for facilities.
Correct.
Yet.
But not for facilities.
Not for facilities. They're basically asking everyone in the state to provide a whole nother grade level in schools.
Right.
But they haven't given us money to build classrooms to
Right.
do it. So we're making do and we're creating a creative model to get it done. And we're looking at as we grow in the next 2 years out, because again, the window of ages grow. So we go up with more kids in there. We are looking at where are we going to need to put in classrooms? Where can we do that?
All right. Thank you.
And the funding we do get is formulaic. So it's if we hire a teacher that costs us $130,000 versus hiring a teacher that costs $90,000, we get the same funding and the expense is variable there. So just not to get too far in the weeds, but it is a formulaic. So it's not a dollar for dollar reimbursement of our costs.
Mr. Whittington, can you talk a little bit about SB 98, which is the enrollment-based funding legislation and where that is? And I think CSBA feels that that's the wrong vehicle for us because it's so categorical.
So as far as I know, it's on the chopping room floor as other larger crises emerge.
I see.
And so I think the time for the state to have captured that would have been in the last 2 years, probably. Now going forward, I think the priority will shift to make sure we're not sinking a ship in terms of what we already currently have. If we are a district where if we're tying funding with SB 98, I believe the way the formula works is any additional funding you get has to be geared towards generating or finding ways to get kids more engaged in school and generating additional attendance. With our previous attendance rates, that would have been a very narrow gap. At 92%, it's a little bit larger. So it all comes down to the implementing details with any legislation, but SB 98 would be no different.
Okay, do you think that we will eventually make the switch to enrollment versus attendance?
Personally, no, but I think it's a worthy endeavor. I think we build classrooms, we staff classrooms based on the kids that are enrolled, and so there's a pipeline we need to serve, whether the kids show up or not. And so I think that's a worthy aspirational goal. But funding based on enrollment without dollars to support it ends us up in the same spot. So if I do the math and get to the same answer at the end of the day, it doesn't really drive change, I guess is my point. So,
thank you.
Yeah, that's an endeavor to try and protect schools that lose enrollment during the course of the year. And so because it's pretty traditional, that we have a drop off in attendance during the course of the year, people move out or move on. We don't have a horrible decline in our district, but it is a tapering effect everywhere. In some districts, it's really pronounced. And so that's in other parts of the state. So that's an attempt to try and protect those districts and their funding because they're trying to keep, operationally sound organizations.
But if Prop 98 is a fixed component of the state budget, you can cut the pie, you can cut the pecan pie any way you want. There's still only 8 slices and I didn't get one. So
just interestingly, it was prior to COVID, so I'm going to say at least 4 years ago, we were doing a big attendance push. And one of the figures that came out was that if every student in Murrieta Valley had one less absence, just one less, so that's maybe, Disneyland with the grandparents or, just staying home for a fun Friday with mom or something. That's from a friend. I heard about that. But the district would be up $1.7 million.
It's a little bit higher now. It's about 2.1 million. It's about $100 per day per kid.
$2.1 million. So certainly, when kids are sick, they need to stay home. Absolutely. But yeah, one less day every kid had one less absence per year.
And the big misnomer is an unexcused absence still results in no funding, or an excused absence still results in no funding for us as a district. So
Right.
just for any parents listening.
There's two elements to that. It's a loss of revenue for the district to pay for services. It's also a loss of learning.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that the public likes to talk about, oh, you just want them to attend because it's more revenue. Okay, but we really want them to attend so they can be in our classrooms learning with their peers and their teachers and having a great experience. So that becomes the number one, and number two is the revenue.
Right. If you look at the 92% attendance rate, a student that is TK through 12 will, by the end of their tenure, have missed an entire year of school at that attendance level.
Oh.
So, yeah, learning really is affected.
Thank you. I didn't mean to digress into that, but thank you.
And then the last comment on the expenditure side, we see inflation continuing to persist, and supply chains, although it's getting better, is still problematic in a lot of different areas for us. But the inflationary pressures are still persistent. I think a lot of that is driven by the wage inflation that's happened over the last few years, and so we're still seeing it even in furniture and pencil and papers and everything else that we buy. So all those assumptions lead us to our projection of general fund revenues. And so this chart in front of you is starts on the left side with our current year estimated actuals, where we think we're going to end the year in terms of revenue. And then the budget year is the next column to the right, and then our two projected out years. And so you can see relatively stable level of funding, although the categories are shifting. And so from this current year end 22-23 to 23-24, we have a $5 million decline in revenue that we're projecting. That is primarily driven by a drop off in the one-time funding that we got last year that is now being talked about getting clawed back. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then it's offset partially by that large COLA on the LCFF side. So you can see that giant blue bar is our LCFF funding. That grows by almost $16 million, but it's offset by a decline in one-time dollars from the state. And then in the out years, the reason for the decline from 23-24 to 24-25 is when we do our budget, we are projecting that all of our federal allocations of dollars will be spent as we implement programs in the subsequent year. Typically there's fallout and we don't get everything spent, and so it rolls over into the next year. But as we're preparing the budget, we go conservatively and assume that all dollars will be spent. And so on the federal side, we recognize the revenue as we spend the dollars. And so there's a matching of revenues and dollars. And so you could see from 23-24 to 24-25, the decline of $5 million is primarily driven by a drop in the federal revenues, offset again by a growth in the LCFF as we recognize more COLA. And then in that 25-26 year, there's growth due to primarily, again, the COLA on the LCFF side. Everything else stays pretty stable. Shifting over to the expenditure side of the budget, our 22-23 estimated actuals are coming in at $315.9 million. We expect a pretty substantial increase in 23-24, but up to $353 million. That is primarily, again, driven by our personnel costs as we've increased with our labor partners, our compensation for employees as we've increased staffing. And then other areas of the budget, that blue bar at the top, all the other categories of our budget are also increasing as we spend more on other things and we face those inflationary pressures. The other component of the personnel and benefit costs is the statutory benefits I spoke about, and the pension cost that's built into that green bar. So you can see that rise from current year to the budget year, and then some stabilization in those out years.
We're expecting inflation, right, in those next years, because that doesn't move too much as you move down there
We are still expecting inflation. What the offset happens to be is on the in the 23-24, we're implementing some of those one-time dollars. We have one-time expenditures associated with them. So we have some planned upgrades with the arts, music, and instructional materials block grant and some other one-time type activities that are budgeted for in the 23-24 year that then fall off in that 24-25. So we're doing pluses and minuses in all the different years. So it's just a straight allocation going forward.
I did hear on the news, it was either today or yesterday, that rate of inflation is going down, even though there's still inflation.
It was, I think it eased is the best word, down to 4%, which is still historically fairly high for us as a nation in the last 10 or 12 years. So. All of that translates to large numbers that end up with our ending fund balance. And this is the biggest component, or I would say the most important component of our budget in terms of being a board member and reviewing where we're at. We project to end the 23-24 school year with a just under $95 million ending fund balance, which is an incredibly large number for us historically. that number tapers off in the 2 out years as we spend down our restricted dollars. So you can see the top line is our restricted ending fund balance. Those are dollars that are restricted for a specific purpose, those one-time categoricals, those one-time state grants. That drop off from 30 million down to 16 million, down to 15 million. So that the biggest component of our deficit spending in the 24-25 year is actually the one-time spending that'll happen of our categoricals. We do have some unrestricted deficit spending, but we anticipate being able to correct that as revenues materialize and come back. We still end the year with an extremely healthy ending fund balance in the 25-26 year, just under 62 million. Our required reserve, the state requires us to keep a 3% reserve, and that's 10.88 million. We're about $50 million higher than that. So should revenues not materialize or expenditures change in the future years, we have some room to weather some difficult economic times in the short term. Can we sustain it for a long time? Absolutely not. But in the short term, we have plenty of room to sustain anything that's thrown at us.
So for trustees, that's similar to, as the state has a rainy day fund, we have our own bit of a rainy day fund. And so should those things become really severe, we will be okay in the short term.
That's just a reserve. That's quite high for reserves.
it
That's
really
why I
is.
was going to ask you what the percentages are of the
Yeah,
reserve.
that required reserve line there, that second one, that's the required minimum.
Yeah.
The other ones are other places where we have carefully held on to dollars so that in the event things come worse and we can slowly spend that down. And that way we can maintain our efforts, and we can maintain staffing, and we can maintain positions.
Mhm.
And while we make it, and we don't have to rush into some sort of quick cutting process. And maybe we can, if we do have to make cuts, it's done over time through attrition, people retirement, and some right sizing. It allows us to be really purposeful, not reactionary.
Yeah.
So, because we do think, as Ms. Vandergrift pointed out, and actually I heard it from a gentleman from School Services from Sacramento yesterday. We are kind of anticipating some challenging times coming around the corner.
Absolutely.
And so this demonstrates our preparation. So
one of the other elements on this chart is the committed ending fund balance. One of the resolutions later on in the meeting tonight is approving the committed ending balances. That is the board's mark on where we're flagging those to be spent in a certain way. And the reason that's presented for you later on is because the state has a law that requires us to have a purpose assigned for any of our reserves above 10% when certain conditions are met at the state level. We're in this very interesting time where we see winter is coming and these tough economic times are ahead, and the state's telling us we are mandated to keep less than 10% of our dollars in completely unrestricted reserves. So your board action will flag those dollars, meet the state requirement, but then the board can take subsequent action to decommit those dollars, for lack of a better term, and use them for any other purpose. So it's a I don't want to say it's a state requirement that we're using a strategy to meet, but it still gives the board flexibility if things were to change economically.
I just want to compliment you on this. That's brilliant. $50 million and we're ready for winter. Thank you.
Not a long winter, just a short one.
Enough to go get a sweater.
Someone knew winter was coming. That's great.
I have a quick question. So do these numbers, I know there's speculation about whether it's going to be mild, moderate, or severe recession. So do these numbers kind of factor in one way or the other?
They do not. And I think that we're going on the best information we have, and that's an indication that it's not an indication, that's built on no recession. If there is a recession, a mild or a moderate recession, we would see some declines in revenue. The state has a couple mechanisms that I believe would be implemented. They have their state rainy day fund. The state doesn't follow GAAP accounting, and so they have some tricks they can do, like they did in the 08 recession, to defer dollars and move things around a little bit. So there's some tools the state can use to minimize the impact to us, and then we have our reserves that can help cushion that for us even further. All right. And so with that, the 23-24 budget reflects the district's priorities and includes all the necessary expenditures to support the goals and actions included in the district's LCAP, which was just approved. And so that's what I have for you guys this evening, unless there's any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
Okay, we call for a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to D10, adoption of resolution number 22/23/23, authorizing the education protection account EPA requirements. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D11, adoption of resolution number 22/23-24, authorizing and providing for the levying of special taxes within various community facilities districts. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Let's see, D11. Adoption, D12, adoption of resolution number 22/23-25 to commit funds in the general fund balance. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. D13, approval to renew contracts to Papa John's Pizza and Domino's Pizza to provide fresh pizza for the 2023/24 school year. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. This important piece, if you have,
All the students are excited about this one.
I know, I knew they would be there outside in the parking lot now. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D14, approval to award contract to P&R Paper Supply Company for paper goods and supplies for the 23/24 school year. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. D15, acceptance of donations and terms from Special Olympics Southern California Unified Champion Schools. This calls for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments?
I have a question, Dr. Andrus. Is this some of the funding that may be coming to an end? The
So-
grant funding or?
Yeah, so because we've been receiving a bit of funds for a period of time
Uh-huh.
and we've been able to start and really develop our Special Olympics programs through Unified Sports and expand it, they may over time choose to move that dollars to other regions to get them going. So think of it as like a starting point. And
Okay.
so we've been able to make some progress and be prepared to cover these expenses. Should the grant run out, we want to continue the efforts. And so through some appropriate budgeting and actually some good work by Dr. Preston and James, who also been able to develop some clarifying roles and so forth and guidelines for our schools so they can follow a more common criteria about how to proceed with the funds they do receive. And we want to make sure the board saw this as opposed to just putting this in a consent item.
Mhm.
We want to make sure the board had a chance to see this one.
Great,
Okay,
thank
any
you.
other
Spend more time.
comments?
Excuse me.
Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. D16, first reading of proposed revisions to board policy and administrative regulation. BP/AR 1330 Civic Center, use of school facilities. That is an information item.
It is. I just want to draw attention to it. This is a few language changes in the policy. This is formula driven, so it's not like our own set of schedule that we create. We follow a formula provided by the state, but we have not made an adjustment in quite some time. And so some of these rates are an increase. And so some of our community partners may find that it's more funds, but we have increased expenses through labor, through supplies, through wear and tear on buildings and properties and so forth. And we found there is some, we need to make a couple of corrections. So this is the first reading. The second reading won't be presented until August. So there's plenty of time for community input or conversation or question or whatever it might be that may come. So we just want to make sure it's available now.
For those of you that didn't read through the policy, what this is for community groups to use our buildings. It's a really important piece of public education because all of our buildings were paid for by tax dollars and our community should be able to use them. So churches and booster groups and PTAs and all kinds of people can use our facilities at a very, very low sort of rental amount. So it's good thing. Glad to see it.
Okay, that's an information item. Moving on to G, adjournment. I call for a motion and a second to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 7:25, 7.
So moved.
Second.
Whatever it is. So moved. Do I hear a second?
Yep.
Yes.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for all coming and enduring to the end.